Greetings, adventurers. Welcome to Happy Trail Backpacking. This week, we are out in the wilderness here, and we're going to be doing a little dispersed camping. And I'm going to be talking about dispersed camping and using your land. Alright, it is an absolutely gorgeous day today. It is 70 degrees. It feels a little warmer, but 70 degrees. Look at this nice blue sky behind me. Some nice fluffy clouds in it. Oh, and it's just gorgeous today. No bugs. But we're going to be talking about using public lands and dispersed camping. Alright, so to start off, I guess, I wanted to mention that I'm at the same place I was when I did my video for day hiking. And if you remember in that video, the trail was flooded, and I showed a video of it. It was just the water was right up to the parking lot. The water's receded now. Parts of the trail are still closed, but it's crazy. Just look at all this destruction. So, a lot of people haven't heard or don't know what dispersed camping is. So dispersed camping is camping outside of an established campground, but inside public lands. So now we know what dispersed camping is, but what is public land? A lot of people don't know what public land really means, and it's kind of complicated, and that's probably why. So public land is really just any kind of federally government-owned land. National parks, state parks, national forests, state forests, Bureau of Land Management land, anything managed by the Forest Service, wilderness areas, things like that. These public lands are here for us and paid for by us with federal tax dollars. But the purpose of the Forest Service and forest management is not only to preserve the forest and to open it for recreation and stuff, but it's more to mitigate the use of that land by not only for recreation use, but for business and natural resources as well, because lumber companies also pay taxes, and they need to get their lumber from somewhere. So Forest Service job is really to manage the use of that land so that people can recreate there and use that land for recreational purposes, but at the same time businesses can also use the natural resources in a managed, safe way. Having said that, not all public lands are open for dispersed camping. And that's where it kind of really gets confusing, because there are so many different agencies and different types of public land, and each one kind of has its own little rules. I believe that finding where you can disperse camp and where you can't disperse camp is probably the hardest part of dispersed camping. To me, it's very confusing. It varies from place to place how they list it and how they notify you that it's not okay or it is, or they're always in different places online. So the easiest way is just to call, talk to a ranger. A lot of times they can give you tips, give you certain places, things to look out for, stuff like that. They've been out there, they know, so they can tell you. Other than that, There are certain rules for dispersed camping, and they're pretty easy to follow. They basically follow the guidelines of leave no trace. And if you haven't seen my video on leave no trace, I'll put a link for it right here. You can watch it after this video. But yeah, leave no trace is a good guideline for dispersed camping. A lot of those, the leave no trace principles is basically dispersed camping principles. Okay, so keep in mind that these rules are a general blanket for all of them, but there might be specific differences at different places, so you'll need to check on your own. Don't take my word for it. They do change sometimes, and they do change from place to place, so you need to look it up and find out for yourself. I'd like to also note that most of these are for the state of Minnesota. Most states do have different rules, but anyway, most of these are from the state of Minnesota, where I am from. So, first starting off with, you must camp at least 1 mile outside of any established campsite. This means that if there's like a car camping site where you park your car and you set up a tent right next to your car and camp there, you need to camp at least 1 mile away from that. And it also says campsites. So like here at the Minnesota Valley Recreation Area, there is a campsite a couple of miles down on this trail. So I need to camp at least 1 mile away from that campsite. The next rule, which I think is a pretty good one, because I saw the effects of this down in Missouri at the Hercules Glade. You can't create a campsite. Okay, you're allowed to camp, dispersed camp, but you're not allowed to create a campsite. You're not allowed to clear brush, cut down trees, make a fire pit. You're pretty much allowed to set up a tent and create as little damage to the underbrush as possible. You're not even supposed to clear brush to set up your tent. You're just supposed to lay it on top of the brush. In Missouri, when I was there, it seemed like every 100 yards there was a new campsite with a fire ring and a big clearing and stuff. So it creates damage to the forest floor, and it makes an impact. So this next one is kind of odd. I don't see a lot of people really needing this, but it is there for a reason. So someone must have tried to live in the woods. But you're only allowed to disperse camp in one location for 14 days, a maximum of 14 days. And I think some places have some different stipulations to this, like your tent needs to be occupied at least on the first night that you're there, or your tent needs to be occupied at least every other night, like it can't be empty for 2 consecutive nights in a row, or there's some weird rules like that, so you need to check it out. But yeah, you can't stay in the same spot for more than 14 days, because otherwise you're just living in the woods. With dispersed camping, I think hunters dispersed camp a lot, so one thing they add in the dispersed camping thing is disposing of animal guts and stuff like that. It's basically the same as human waste. You need to bury it so that it doesn't attract a whole bunch of other animals to come eat them. Another one is building permanent structures. You are not allowed to build structures out in the woods. And I've seen this actually more times than you can think. But people will build like big forts and stuff bushcraft. They come out and they try to practice bushcraft, building their little log cabins out of sticks and stuff. And I've never seen one really intact, but it's like they do take them down, but there's still like this big pile of sticks there, an enormous pile of sticks. You can tell what it was. All right, adventurers, I got my tent all set up over there. It's definitely 100 yards away from this water source. It's 100 yards off of the trail as well, and it's more than a mile from the other campsite down the trail. I'd say it's more than 2 miles from that campsite, but why dispersed camp? Why do people like to do this? Well, there's a number of reasons. One is the flexibility. When you're on a trail, especially like a long distance trail or something, it's really nice to be able to just camp anywhere. When, say at the Porcupine Mountains, when you have to register for a campsite and you need to camp at that campsite, if you get overheated or you get tired, you can't stop and just camp. You have to make it to that campsite. You need to keep going no matter what. I like to have that flexibility, so I can just hike as far as I want to, and then when I feel like it, I can stop, and I see a nice little spot to set up a tent, I can just stop and set up. I don't usually need a fire pit. I don't have fires when I camp by myself, so I don't need the fire pit. I don't really do much. I just kind of have my little spot where my tent goes, and I just need to rest for 6 to 8 hours, and I'm good to go. My second favorite reason, is the solitude. A lot of times when you come hiking out in the wilderness, you don't see a lot of people, but you do see people. There are other hikers that come out there. To take it to the next level, you can disperse camp, which you're not going to a campsite, you're going off trail. You're going to see even less people. So that's a good reason, such as like here at the Minnesota Valley Recreation Center. A lot of people do just hike in here. It's only like a 4-mile loop, so a lot of people just come here to jog or mountain bike, whatever. So a lot of people do come through. But if I'm dispersed camping off trail, I'm not going to see them. A couple of other good reasons. One is the cost. Dispersed camping is free. Again, you got to check the regulations where you go, because like the Boundary Waters, you need to pay a registration fee to camp there. So some places might have a fee, but for the most part, it's free. The last thing is you don't have to worry about it being too crowded or getting a campsite. It's open all the time, and rarely there's people out here dispersed camping, but I do see people dispersed camping from now and again. For the most part, it's much more solitude, and there's a lot less people out when you're dispersed camping. And then last, what are some bad things about dispersed camping? Because there are some downsides to it. And one of my biggest things that I hate about dispersed camping is trying to find a proper campsite. I had trouble, if you go back and watch my trail of the Eagle Rock Loop, I had a little trouble finding a campsite that night, and it was kind of getting to me. It was making me a little irritated, because I would hike all day long just seeing nothing but campsites, but then once I passed the campsite that I was supposed to camp at, there was nowhere to camp. It was just rocky everywhere. You'd be surprised how difficult it can be to find a nice level patch of 4 or 5 feet square ground. It can be kind of difficult to find a level, clear, unrocky, no roots. Yeah, it can be much harder than you think. Another big part of it is, I mentioned it earlier, such as back at the Hercules Glade in Missouri. It can be kind of hard in the environment when it's a highly trafficked area or a highly trafficked trail. You'll get lots and lots of people making campsites, and like I said, you're not supposed to make a campsite, but when there's so much traffic, it's inevitable. The grass is going to end up dying where everyone's walking. You're going to end up creating side trails, and it can get kind of ugly. Alright, folks. Got a nice little log to sit on right here next to my camp. But I better getting some water and start making some dinner. It's starting to get to dinner time. I'm getting a little hungry. But you guys should get on the internet and find some public land near you and go dispersed camping. Now you know what to do. Thanks everybody for joining me. I'll see you next week right here on Happy Trail Backpacking.